So now let's talk about tools for the collection of non-observable data. These include interviews, including class discussions and focus groups, questions or surveys, diaries and journals, and classroom documents. So let's talk about the interviews first. So there are three main types of interviews: structured, guided, and open. Structured interviews are when you have a specific set of questions planned before the interview and you only stick to those questions. In a guided interview, you would have some questions ready, but you would also be more flexible, so responding to what the interviewee says. In an open interview, you would have some topics in mind, but you wouldn't have any questions set up yet. It was just going to be a free conversation. So some tips for a successful interview. Explain the purpose of the interview, what will be done with the information, and the benefits to the participants. Be sensitive to students' responses and any awkwardness or nervousness that might arise. And provide feedback and reinforcement. Before you start an interview, always decide how to record or notate. Are you going to use a recording device, or are you going to take notes during the interview? Remember that if you're taking notes during an interview, you won't be able to write down everything, so you'll need some kind of systematic approach towards abbreviating what they say. Remember, if you use abbreviations, always keep a key. Remember that class discussions and focus groups are similar to the interview and can give you similar benefits. You may not have time to interview each of your students individually, so a class discussion or focus group might be a good way to get more data from more people. If you are doing one-on-one interviews, you can consider trying VoiceBase at voicebase.com to transcribe these interviews. For the strengths and weaknesses of interviews. One of the strengths is that it allows for in-depth discussion of experiences and outcomes. You got valuable feedback for future cycles for when you want to continue your action research. This directly involves students in the process. And it allows you to triangulate data from other collection methods. Some of the limitations include that it's time-consuming to do, especially if you're transcribing. You have to have interviewees who are comfortable talking with you about what's happening in the class. And you have to be careful about what kind of questions you ask, because you don't want there to be any kind of bias. Keep in mind that if you do decide to do class discussions, you're probably only going to hear from just a few of the students, as some of the students might not feel comfortable speaking out in front of everyone. If you're interested in interviews, here are some additional resources that you can use. So now let's talk about questionnaires and surveys. Remember, when you're doing a questionnaire, you can consider using your students' first language. Remember, you want to get as much information from them as you can, and you want to be as accurate as possible. So you want to make sure that the students understand what's being asked of them. So using their first language might be a good approach. There are three main types of surveys. There's factual or demographic. These let us know who the interviewees are and what their backgrounds are like. There's behavioral surveys, which focus on what they do or what they have done in the past. And then there's attitudinal surveys, which focus on attitudes, opinions, beliefs, interests, and values. So let's talk about the types of items that you can include in the survey. There are two main types, which are closed-ended and open-ended. Closed-ended include yes or no questions and rating scales. So when you see like a statement and it says strongly agree, disagree, disagree, agree, strongly agree, that would be a rating scale. And then open-ended items include things like statements like, please explain why you took this course. It can be guided items. For example, if you selected strongly disagree, please explain why. Or they could be structured. The thing I'm most proud of is blank. Either way, open-ended items allow for students to express themselves directly and write how they feel. Remember that a good survey should have a balance of closed and open items. Remember to pilot your questionnaire first, so test it out with a group of students and see what kind of issues come up. Was it easy for them to understand? Things like that. Remember, you can use things online like SurveyMonkey, Poly Everywhere, Twitter, Google Forms. We'll have a space later on the Blackboard to help where you can post your favorite online applications for surveys. So surveys have their strengths and limitations. Strengths include that you can capture a variety of information at one time, and you can do this anytime during your research. Surveys tend to be very structured, and closed questions allow for rapid completion, so you can get a lot of different things in one go. I find that there are already questionnaires that are useful that you can use with just a little bit of adaptation. And again, an easy way to get some quantitative data, to get those numbers. Some of the limitations include that, well, the data is only as good as the questions. So if you're not asking the right questions, you're not going to get the right data. Questions might stray from the research goal in some cases if you're not careful. You do have to carefully select the order of questions and what kind of scales you use. Do you want to use like a scale of 1 to 4 or 1 to 5? The answers that you get are probably going to be subjective, so you'll need additional triangulation. You have to be careful about how you word these statements so that it's clear to the students. If you do find valid questionnaires, like either online or through a colleague, you will probably need to change them a bit to adapt them to your context. And remember that if you're only looking for satisfaction in a lesson from the students, that's really not enough to prove that everything is improving your teaching. If you're interested in questionnaires and surveys, here are some resources that you can look at.